Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Bullion. Our guest today is JP Cortez. JP is the executive director at Sound Money Defense League. Welcome back, JP.
Hey, Ivan, good to be back.
Yeah, it's a huge pleasure having you come back. I wanted to get you on to talk about everything that's happening in the silver and gold markets. But most importantly, right now, what's happening and developing in the news is Elon and how he wants to audit the Federal Reserve. And he wants to see if there's actually that gold that they say there is at Fort Knox. What's happening there, JP?
Yeah, it's really incredible, right? It was kind of an innocuous Twitter exchange. It started with Zero Hedge, kind of, I guess, jokingly tweeting at Elon and saying, hey, you should think about checking out to see if the gold that is purportedly in Fort Knox is actually there. And from there, a snowball rolled where suddenly Senator Rand Paul was in on it. Senator Mike Lee is talking about it. People in news all over the world are talking about it. So now, we're here. We're shining a light on an issue that has been one of America's most shrouded mysteries, which is the status of America's gold reserves, right? As you know, as I'm sure your listeners know, America's gold hasn't been credibly audited in decades.
Right.
And so now, thanks to Elon, thanks to kind of the Doge mantra, at we're looking at transparency, accountability, and efficiency in ways that we haven't before. And obviously, whether or not the gold is in Fort Knox at a time where confidence in the US dollar around the world is waning, could help bolster this public confidence, doing a full audit and revealing the status of America's gold reserves being intact would be huge for the American economy, the global confidence of the dollar as the global reserve currency. On the other hand, if the gold isn't there, or if the gold is owned by someone else, there are for sure questions to be answered. So we've been working legislatively with Congressman Mooney on this for years now, to get an audit of America's gold, and not just an audit, right? We're looking for not just an inventory. We don't want a made-for-TV movie. Elon mentioned earlier, we should do a live walkthrough. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw that
I did
tweet.
see that. I did
And
see that.
Ivan, that's great, and I'm glad that we're attracting attention to this. But that's the same gambit that the government pulled in the 70s, where they brought in a couple of members of Congress, they brought in a camera and did this dog and pony show made for TV spectacle, where they brought out a couple bars out of pre-selected containers. But that's not what a true audit is. We're looking for a physical inventory, of course. We want to make sure that the gold is there in the amounts and the purities that they say it is. But we also want to look at transactions. We want a full accounting of any transaction that gold was involved in, which is what Congressman Mooney's bill would do. I want to know if the gold has been leased or swapped or encumbered in any way, or used as collateral in some other financial entanglement. Is it the International Monetary Fund? Is it the Bank of International Settlements, the World
Right.
Bank? Who owns the gold? To me, more interesting a question than whether or not the gold is physically there in Kentucky is a question of actually who owns claim to the gold. And so the bill that we've been working on for years with the former congressman from West Virginia, would call for a full accounting and then a perpetual audit every 5 years to ensure that the gold is there and safe and it not entangled in any way.
There's about $15 trillion worth of physical gold in the world sitting there costing money rather than being used. Is just absolutely insane. Monetary Metals is bringing gold back into the financial world, putting gold to productive use right now. The problem with gold, of course, in physical form is that it's heavy, it's cumbersome, it's not particularly easy to ship, and it costs money to store in a protected manner. This platform Monetary Metals created is a proven concept and allows gold to be put to productive use. So instead of sitting there costing you money, it's actually in use earning you money.
Learn how you can earn 2 to 5% in our leasing program and how accredited investors can earn up to 12% on silver paid in silver. This advertisement is not investment or financial advice. Minimum investment applies.
Yeah, because they could have a video or a live feed of just one single room, bring out some bars, da 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 da. But if you don't know, like, what happens, JP, if Elon does this, you do get an audit of the gold there at Fort Knox, and then we end up finding that, hey, this gold is not actually America's gold. Like America doesn't actually own a majority or a big chunk of it. Well, what happens there? What questions need to be asked? And yeah, like that would be crazy.
That would be absolutely crazy. As I'm sure you know, that's not the government's gold. That is the gold of American taxpayers. The government has been holding it on their behalf.
Wow.
For those vault doors to open and the result of that be to be found that America's gold isn't there or it isn't in the quality or amounts that they say it is would be a massive scandal. And politicians would have to be held accountable. The bankers and the people in the financial administrations and offices that allowed for this to happen have to be held responsible. As we know, and as our founders knew from the very beginning, the people who drafted our Constitution knew that monetary power, paper money, is one of the most evil injustices that the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to create or to print for what others have to work for, the creating of this fake value is immoral, it's unjust, it's unconstitutional. So for that to be the case and for that to be so blatantly shown would be probably really harmful, devastating even to the current state of the global confidence in the US dollar. But from there, that sunlight creates that disinfectant, and that's what has to create. That's what has to take place to ensure, to validate, to verify that America's economy is as strong as we say and we hope it is. This sort of auditing, what Elon is inviting into the government, which hasn't taken place in any branch of the government, really in any real way for decades, has to take place. If there's fraud, if there's waste, if there are untruths to uncover, that has to happen. And politicians should be inviting that sort of inward look into our account books and into our reserves.
Absolutely, JP. And do you think they can fill it up before this audit actually happens, or there's no chance in heck that they can do that?
What do you mean fill it up, Ivan?
Like a lot of people online are talking about like, oh, they're just going to fill up the vaults because if it's empty now and there's no actual gold there, then they can just fill it up before the audit actually takes place. Is that a possibility or no? Would that take too much time?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility, I suppose. I think, yeah, we should be looking closely as to whether or not brink trucks are coming in and out of Fort Knox over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think that stuff will be uncovered. I think ultimately an audit and an accounting to the depth and the scope of what the Gold Reserve Transparency Act
It will uncover that.
calls for, right? That would answer these questions that deserve answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just shocked and thinking like, what are the consequences and what are the outcomes if there is a slight chance of fraud that, that the Americans don't actually have this gold? How will it look on the global stage and how will it look geopolitically around the world? Just all these questions are it's just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting question because the truth is certainly not explicitly, but implicitly, this government and government around the world still view gold as a fundamental monetary asset. That's why governments all around the world still hold it. That's why allegedly America holds it. And even whether or not America's stockpile is there, we can verifiably show that countries all over the world, central banks all over the world, are stockpiling gold. Adversaries to the United States and otherwise. So this isn't just America's enemies. This is, of course, countries all around the world, but even looking inward, states themselves, right? States are de-dollarizing actively as well because they are looking at their balance sheets and realizing we don't own a single ounce of an asset that's free from counterparty risk.
Right.
That we don't, everything we own is dollar denominated. We need to own gold too. And so states even now, Utah now owns, I believe, just under $50 million worth of gold. Wyoming, North Dakota are actively passing legislation to enable gold reserves, to establish gold reserves for their states.
Right.
So the movement away from the dollar is happening actively, and it's happening from abroad and domestically. So the choice now, the ball is in the court of the monetary stewards here in the United States. A public audit would be a vote of confidence. It would show that America is strong and has nothing to hide. Our economy is not kayfabe. It is a real economy backed by real goods and ultimately underlying the greatest stockpile of the greatest monetary asset the world has ever seen. If
Yeah.
that is the case, then America will come forward and it will flourish because the American economy, backed by America's gold, is the strongest economy the world has ever seen. But the gold has to be there. And for us to know whether or not it's there, those vaults have to be opened and a full audit and accounting has to take place.
Can they just say no to the audit?
I suppose they can, if Congress, even if Congress passes a law,
Like
the
who owns
Treasury.
Fort Knox? Is it the American government? Because you said it's for the people. The people, the gold is for the people. But who actually runs and operates and owns Fort Knox? Is it the American government?
Yeah, it is the American government, and they are policed by Mint Police. So they have their own police force as well. In the case of them just refusing an audit, I think that would be very telling, if nothing
Right.
else. The refusal to be honest and then to be inspected, it would be very troubling. But I'm going to be honest. I wasn't necessarily hopeful about the chances of Doge actually doing things that made a real difference as far as uncovering waste and eliminating it.
But they have been.
But
Yeah.
but they have been, and so I'm looking at this in a new light, and I'm seeing an opportunity that we've never seen before. This is as close as we've ever come to auditing America's gold. Just this conversation that we're having, that MSN and Newsweek were covering this, auditing America's gold today. This is light years ahead of where we have been. And so I'm more hopeful than I ever have been that either there will be a congressional act passed, someone will reintroduce this bill, maybe one of these Liberty congressmen will introduce this bill and the bill will be passed. Some of this can be done by executive order as well. So I think that there are a lot of potential avenues through which this can take place if the political will is there. And to this point, it has not been. We'll see if that has changed.
And I mean, like countries, like just countries themselves, like let's say countries in Europe or Australia or whichever country it is, let's say they're holding gold with the US and then the US stores it in Fort Knox. Wouldn't they be curious to see, like, hey, where's our gold?
That they absolutely would be. And there's, questions now, or are countries rehypothecating their gold? Is that why there's so much movement? Is the reason that this stuff is coming over from London, or that there's a shortage in London,
Yeah.
because the US's gold was there and now we're having to repatriate it? There are all of these questions, and of course, all of this is speculation. I don't know the answer to any of these questions, but certainly, if I were a country, a central bank that were storing gold at the Fed, and after years and years of not receiving credible audits and there being questions about the audits, the supposed audits that did take place
Right.
in the 70s, where more than half of the reports of these audits wound up missing, just simply disappeared. We simply don't know where the documentation of these audits that supposedly took place in the 70s went. That, coupled with stories, evidence of seals being tampered with and broken,
Yeah.
questions around the validity of the the Fort Knox's internal practices, whether or not the gold is there, what is said to be an audit is not actually an audit. All of these questions need to be answered. And yeah, if I were one of these other countries, I would want to know, of course, and I would be making extreme efforts, whether, the appearance, especially in an industry like storage of precious metals. Trust is the currency. That is the
Yeah.
entire thing. So even the appearance of impropriety can signal to a country to say, hey, this place is no longer safe. I need to pull my gold. And that can start happening. And that's why it's even all the more important that Fort Knox and gold reserves in deep storage, so not just Fort Knox, but all of America's gold reserves, be accounted for, and publicly validated.
Yeah, like let's play a scenario out in the future. Let's say the audit does come to life and Fort Knox doesn't actually have this gold that they supposedly have, and then all of these countries start mass pulling their gold away from the U.S. If the gold if the gold is not even there in the U.S., how are they going to give all these countries back their gold?
That becomes the ultimate question, right? And then we'll actually get to see whether or not it's true that gold is just a barbarous relic,
Right.
or if it's true that gold has monetary value. If it is true that gold means nothing, then then they could open the vault doors at Fort Knox and not find an ounce of gold, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
But if they open those vault doors and they find that the gold isn't there, and public confidence in the dollar shakes, and strength in the dollar falls, and general acceptance of the dollar worldwide as a payment clearing settlement currency falls, then we can start asking questions again and showing that obviously, no, wait, underpinning this entire system of debt and credit is the greatest monetary asset ever seen in gold. And that still carries, if not explicitly, implicitly, that still carries weight.
Hello, my fellow silver and gold stacker. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching the channel. Subscribe, please like the video, and also hit the notification bell. Keep stacking. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, JP. Now, the bill that you guys are introducing, what's the timeline on that? Do you think that everything that's happening with Elon obviously is going to come first, or do you guys think your bill can, like, what's the timeline on when you think it's going to be passed, in your personal
In
opinion?
in general, I think that if this happens, it would best happen through the steam that Elon is creating.
Right.
A little insider baseball here. Passing federal policy is worse than pulling teeth. It is
That's
time
sad.
consuming. It is completely gridlocked. It is not an efficient use of time or energy.
Right.
So the prospects of reintroducing a federal bill such as this, and then working it through committee, and then eventually getting to the president to sign. Hundreds of, if not thousands of bills a year get introduced that never receive even a hearing.
Yeah.
So if I had to guess, unless something about the political will within Congress has changed, this bill would likely fall to the wayside like so many others. However, again, we're living in an era apparently where all it takes is the attention of this one person, and if this one person shines a light on this issue, suddenly the roaches come crawling out, and what is there or not there is revealed. So we're more hopeful than we've ever been that the new drawn attention to this could be what gets this over the finish line and attracts the attention here. And of course, this is just one step. After you audit the gold, what do we do then? We audit and eliminate the Fed.
Right.
And there's a talk then about like revaluing the gold and monetarily repegging the gold to a different number and things like that. So before any of that can happen, before gold can be reset at $3,000 an ounce, before senators can sell off our gold stock to buy Bitcoin with it, before any of that stuff can happen, a full comprehensive audit has to take place.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with you, and I'm more hopeful than ever since I was so shocked seeing all these tweets come out from Elon saying, we got to check this gold at Fort Knox, and I was like, it's time, baby.
It's
I
like
mean,
it's like being in a dream. I
yeah.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, but JP, I want to thank you so much for coming down to Wall Street Bullion. Where can people connect with you? I'd love for them to connect with you. I highly recommend everyone watching this, please connect with JP. Where can people follow you?
You can find me on Twitter or X, JP Cortez 27. You can find the Sound Money Defense League at Sound Money Def, and the website is soundmoneydefense.org. We also our partners, our funders, Money Metals Exchange, an online bullion dealer and depository. They fund this legislative project that I am so fortunate to have run for the last 11 years now. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm available by email. You can find my contact information. And if you live in a state where you either know of sound money policies that need to change, or if you're thinking to yourself, hey, I wonder how my state is doing. You can go online, find our index, find where your state ranks out of all 50 states.
Oh,
And if there's
nice.
work to be done in your state, please reach out. I would love to work on a project with you to bring sound money to your state.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, yeah, no, I really, really appreciate you coming down, and I'm confident that everything that we're seeing and developing in the precious metal space is really going to shine a light on everything that's all, whether it's corruption or fraud or whatever it is, we'd really like to see it go through. But yeah, JP, thank you so much for coming down. I'd love to have you back on in the future.
Appreciate you, Ivan. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Talk to you soon.